Oh my God, they're just there. They're just there. Okay, what can I do? Think, Jared, think. Paperclip, that's right. If I could just find a paperclip. There could be something in these drawers. Oh my God, okay. Right. Dear Lord Jesus, faith. Okay, maybe like a up, down, left and right, cross. Faith. So faith. Maybe it's like a wavy motion. It's got a wave, and faith. It's supposed to work. Okay, so turns out you just need the right tool for the job. And don't ask me how I got the keys, okay? It's not relevant to my story. But when you are in a tight spot, you need a key that actually fits the lock. And faith isn't always it. How do you get these things off? Arrow, twist this way. People wave it around like a magic wand, expecting it. Are these the right keys? Expecting it to fix everything. But faith doesn't hand you a free pass to believe whatever you want. Okay, oh, finally, there we go. Okay, I need to show you something. So, Craig Groeschel, you probably know him as the pastor of Life Church, one of the biggest churches in the world. So he's written a bunch of best-selling books. His sermons reach millions. And I wanted to focus in on just one of them. It's titled Dealing with Your Doubt. And the most interesting part of that sermon is where there's a massive spike of interest. So we're going to go straight there because his entire sermon centers in on that one point. And his congregation love it. He gets big applause because it's quite a vulnerable moment. He's standing there in church about to preach when he suddenly doubts whether God is even real.
What if it's just like emotional? What if it's a crutch? What if you die and go back to the ground? What if this isn't real? And I'm telling you, I couldn't breathe. My heart was pounding. I started shaking, the tears started coming, and I looked right at the exit sign and thought, maybe I can just escape.
Craig's having a real meltdown here. The foundations of his Christian belief are falling away. So what's his solution to overcoming doubt? What's the take-home message of the entire sermon?
It takes faith. It's always going to take faith. Faith. I have faith to believe. And I discovered that faith is not the absence of doubt, but faith is the means to push through doubt.
And his followers just lap it up. Craig Groeschel escapes his intellectual pickle by pulling out the word faith like it's a get out of jail free card that he can play anytime, anywhere to fix any kind of doubt. But there's no free lunch when it comes to knowing whether God exists. The way Craig uses faith to prop up his collapsing belief is completely wrong. And in this video, I'm going to show you exactly why that is. So the first step in clearing up this epistemic mess is to untangle faith from other words and ideas that it often gets mixed up with. So faith doesn't stand alone. It lives in a crowded neighborhood surrounded by belief, trust, loyalty, confidence, hope, allegiance, knowledge, certainty, proof, doubt, evidence, reason, and blind faith. And these words exist for a really important reason, because each one subtly captures a different part of how we build and structure our beliefs. But problems arise when we fail to distinguish between these concepts. So without this nuanced vocabulary, we lose our ability to precisely articulate and analyze if our beliefs are formed correctly. It's like dropping the resolution on reality, reducing the number of pixels in the picture until the fine details gets lost. So instead of being able to tell where my forehead stops and my hairline starts, which is totally fine, thanks for asking. So we paint over important details with broad brushstrokes. Boundaries get crossed, important nuances disappear, and our ability to navigate reality becomes increasingly limited. So if these concepts feel a little blurry right now, then this next section will sharpen the picture and reveal where faith can subtly take a dark turn and actually become quite dangerous. So that's exactly why I need to call it out right now. So unless some higher power wants to pull the plug on me, this next part will shine a massive spotlight on faith, doubt, and... Oh, are you kidding me? I think the power's just gone out. Hang on a sec. Yeah. Yeah, it's okay. Hang on one moment. Let me fix this. Hang on. All right. Just give me a sec. I think this is going to work. Yeah. So we're going to shed some light on belief, evidence, and clear up common misunderstandings on where the word faith actually belongs when it comes to overcoming doubt. Okay, this should work. Yes. Yeah. All right, car lights to the rescue. All right, we're back on board. So we need to understand how a healthy belief comes about. So let me use an analogy. So I'm on a dating app, and somehow miraculously I get a match and we decide to meet up. But here's the big question: do I believe she's wife material? And I don't know. I just met her. I've got absolutely nothing to go on. So we have a coffee, and I note if she laughs at my jokes, or if we're stuck filling awkward silences. We spend a weekend together, but do I believe she's the one? Still no idea. It's been 2 months? So I continue to gather more evidence. So I'll meet her friends and observe her family dynamics. I'll take a peek under her dress. Oh, sorry. I mean, I'll observe what she's like under stress. We'll go traveling together. There's no mute button there. It's just 24/7 time together. And all of this, it's data collection. It doesn't sound very romantic, but this is why I didn't propose to her on the very first date. This is what was missing. And beliefs, when they do form, should be built on and supported by the evidence. So it's our interactions with reality that help us understand how this reality works. So if someone questions my belief that she's wife material, I point exactly to that which supports my belief, which is evidence. But atheists, just mute this bit, okay? Just don't listen. I don't want to read your comments below. Just for a few minutes, just hit mute, all right? Okay. I think they're gone. Because even with all of the evidence in the world, we can't escape the fact that faith still plays a role. Because at some point, I have to act on this belief. So I take the plunge. I get down on one knee and I pop the question. And please God, let her say yes. But we plan a wedding. I say my vows and I marry her. And it's at that moment that I put faith in my belief. Because no matter how much research I've done, no matter how much evidence I've gathered, I still can't be certain. There's still a risk there. She might cheat on me. She might wake up one morning and roll over and be like, yeah, well, last night was a little bit shorter than expected. I can't promise that much. But by marrying her, I take that risk. I choose to step out and trust the evidence-based belief that I've arrived at. And that's what faith is. It's not blind. It's not a step beyond reason, believing more than what the evidence can justify. Faith is simply an action taken with the expectation of a particular outcome. So you can sit there all you like thinking, yeah, she would make a great wife. But if you never take action, risk something, get down on one knee, then all you got is a nice theory. Or like me, just a pile of unanswered texts. Okay, power's back on. And atheists, you can unmute now. Cool. Welcome back, atheists. Welcome back. Yes, so Craig Rochelle has a nice wife, and he has more hair than me. But he has this faith-doubt idea completely backwards. So if you're starting to doubt your belief, if the evidence you originally built it on turns out to be a bit dodgy, you don't swap out that evidence for faith. You replace that bad evidence with better evidence, so your belief can once again stand on solid ground. We need to remember, evidence and trust or faith, call it what you will, are both necessary parts of the equation, but they play different roles. Evidence justifies the belief, and trust acts on that belief to get things done. Faith doesn't build the house. Faith is choosing to walk inside and trust that the roof won't collapse on you. Now, there are three main objections to what I've said, and we'll cover them soon. But if we never think about the relationship between belief, evidence, and faith, and the different roles they have, then we have a problem, like a really big one. Faith, what it is, how it works, we're fumbling in the dark. And the church, it's not helping the situation. Their love affair with faith is wildly unbalanced. They hold it too close, breathe it too deep, and get drunk on their own fumes. But you know what they do have a clear teaching on? Sex. Yeah, the church is obsessed. God made us to populate the earth, but the sex, only within marriage, of course. And when it comes to who you can do what, when, and with whom, the clarity is crystal clear. Boundaries, ironclad. Take a bow, church. You win. Best communication ever. But when it comes to explaining faith, untangling belief from trust and trust from blind loyalty, like suddenly the lines blur, the edges fade, because figuring it out, well, that's hard work. Would you like to spend a lifetime buried in books, wading through dense arguments? Philosophers, theologians, it's not a theologian, theologians, atheists, apologists, but none of them agree. One book says God is real, and the next says he's not. Another swears it's a different God entirely. And where does that leave you? Lost in a pile of books, chasing answers with no promise you'll ever find one. Most people don't have time for that. Most people don't want to spend time on that. And why would they? When faith is right in front of you, simple, ready-made, a shortcut to bypass the struggle, just believe. It's easier. Faith needs no context, no caution, no condoms. People just throw themselves at it, grabbing onto whatever they can, whether it fits or not. Just one giant, sweaty faith orgy. But here's the part that no one tells you. Much like sex within marriage, faith too needs boundaries. There's a difference between trust built on something real and faith used as a cheat code to skip the hard part. Gathering evidence, figuring out what's actually true, separating facts from wishful thinking. Because if we don't define where the line gets drawn, then faith is a free-for-all. A get-out-of-jail-free card that anyone can play to justify whatever wild supernatural tale they wish to believe in. And we can't have that, right? But this is exactly how Craig and many other Christians treat faith. They act like it's some kind of miracle drug that fixes every problem without side effects. They get drunk on the word without ever stopping to ask where a healthy faith actually fits in a belief structure and where it was never meant to go. Let me give you some real-world examples of this, because it really highlights how using faith to overcome doubts is just so wrong. So, example, a plane is at the airport ready to leave its bay. A flight safety engineer runs the usual checks, everything looks fine, he believes the plane is safe to fly, based on the evidence in front of him. But then, just before takeoff, he hears an unusual clunking sound coming from the left engine. It's something to do with the turbines, and something's clearly wrong. So doubt kicks in and his belief starts to collapse. But then he remembers Craig's sermon.
Faith is the means to push through doubt.
And so he shrugs, takes a deep breath and says, you know, plane's good to fly. I've got faith to overcome my doubts. It'll be fine. But faith doesn't fix the engines, does it? It doesn't push through doubt by ignoring evidence against your position. You resolve doubt by gathering better evidence. You don't fly until you've seen the turbines being repaired or replaced. Okay, that one was easy, but watch what happens when we use the same logic, the same structure, the same principled argument, and just apply it to different scenarios. And you'll see faith still isn't a get-out-of-jail-free card that Craig thinks it is. So, a medical researcher watches early drug trials fail and starts doubting if the drug is safe. Oh, but don't worry.
Faith is the means to push through doubt.
Or a parent starts doubting whether a holy relic will heal their dying child, but clings to it anyway.
Faith is the means to push through doubt.
And then, say, a believer, let's call him Craig, starts doubting whether an unseen God is even real. Right there in, say, the middle of a worship service. Oh, but again.
Faith is the means to push through doubt.
Oh, hang on. I see where you're going with this, Jared. Yeah, so Craig, this one's different. It's clearly different. It's totally not the same. Because believing in God, it isn't like your earlier examples. You see, Jared, you can see the damaged plane's wing with your own eyes, so faith isn't required. But God is supernatural. He's beyond scientific detection, so we can't see, touch, or measure him. In other words, we have no evidence for God. So faith has to be a part of coming to believe he exists. And I hear you, I do. It's an interesting point, but two quick things. First, that's not quite accurate. So even if God is supernatural, science can still detect the indirect effects of supernatural actions. So science can't detect the supernatural force pulling cancer cells out of your sick body, but science can detect that your cancer is suddenly gone the day after you prayed. So indirect effects are measurable. And if you want more on that, I've got a video coming up that unpacks how science can deal with supernatural claims. So subscribe and keep an eye out for it. But second, and most importantly, let's say you're right. Let's say God really is beyond science and all possible detection. Fine. But if you're going to use faith as your way of knowing he's real, then you've got to show me that faith is actually a valid tool for knowing that. You can't just assert it. You have to show that faith leads people to actual truth and not just what you want to be true. Like, can faith sort through a dozen competing religions and consistently just pick the right one? Like, can faith filter out false claims? Does it actually point to what's real time after time? Because if it doesn't, then it's not a tool for knowing. It's a feeling, it's a guess, it's just a wish. And quoting Hebrews 11 doesn't fix that. You can't just say something poetic like, faith is believing without seeing, and calling it a day. Like, an assertion is not an argument. Poetry isn't proof. And if you want faith to carry the weight of knowledge, then the burden's on you to show that it works. That faith only points to true religions and not false ones. Because otherwise, anyone can believe anything on faith and call it true. And if we accept that, then truth stops meaning anything at all. The atheist Matt Delahunty captures this logic brilliantly in a phone call with a believer. But just before I play that, let me define the word reliable, and you'll see why in a sec. So, reliable means consistently good in quality or performance, able to be trusted. Now, imagine some GPS software that sometimes takes you to the right place and other times gets you completely lost. Like, you wouldn't call that a reliable guide to your destination, would you? Play video.
So is faith a reliable pathway to truth?
To some, no, but to others, yes.
Why are we hedging here?
No, we're done. I promised I would let you go on, but all right. So
Okay.
faith can sometimes lead you to truth,
Correct.
and faith
Correct.
can sometimes lead you to something that's not true,
Yes.
which means that faith is not a reliable path to truth, right?
You can't just rule faith out like that, though.
The fuck you can.
I kind of feel sorry for the caller, but think about this. Imagine someone comes to you and says, I found a religion and I know it's true because I have faith that it is. Like, they could be believing in Scientology for all you know. Like, would you really trust they've found the true religion because they used faith to find it? Anyway, I've got two more popular objections to cover, and then I'll walk through the simplest, most obvious way to deal with doubt that kind of makes this whole faith thing look a bit silly. So stick around for another 3 minutes. Okay, objection 2. Christianity isn't a religion, it's a relationship. Like, I've heard this countless times. You can't find God through logic and evidence because Christianity isn't a religion, it's a relationship. And relationships aren't measured in data points and lab results. They're built on personal experience, intimacy, and trust. Something beyond the reach of scientific analysis. And that is why faith is essential. Okay, right. Just slow down for a sec. So, before you can be in a relationship with someone, you first have to know that they exist. So let me say that again. You don't start dating an imaginary person and then after you've been hanging out for a while, do you go look for evidence that they actually exist? Well, you don't do that, right? So Craig's doubt wasn't about whether God loves him. It wasn't about whether he could trust God. It was whether God even exists. So that's an epistemic claim, not a relational one. And that means we're not in relationship territory yet. We're still in the does this being exist territory. And that is where evidence, reason, and analysis do belong. Like, once you're convinced that someone is real, then it makes sense to consider whether you should trust them, whether you believe in them, or whether they're worthy of having a relationship with. But Craig's trying to use relational faith as a fix before he's even figured out whether the being exists. That's not just premature, it's backwards. So, objection 3. Not everything we believe in life is based on hard evidence or certainty. So we trust all kinds of things without proof. And faith is just another example of that. So, right. I actually agree with most of that. In fact, I said the same thing in my dating analogy. So we don't need certainty to form beliefs. So, like, I believe in all kinds of things without being 100% certain, and that's normal. So we trust that planes will fly. We trust people to keep their promises. We trust the lights won't go out halfway through my video. But sometimes we're wrong, and that's life. But here's the confusion. Just because we can't reach absolute certainty about something, it doesn't mean we get to skip gathering evidence and reason to form beliefs in the first place. Uncertainty is fine, but it's not an excuse to use faith as a shortcut. Because faith doesn't come before the belief is formed. It's what you used after. Once you've gathered enough reasons to think something is true, faith is the trust you place in that belief when you act on it. So again, if you're like Craig and you're doubting whether God even exists, don't be leaning on faith to do the heavy lifting. That's not where it belongs. Faith isn't what you use to form a belief. It's what you use to live out a belief you already have. Okay, so I promised you a simple solution to this whole doubt mess. And it's not a hard fix. You don't need more faith. You don't need to dig deeper into Christ. You don't need to spiritualize doubt or rebrand uncertainty as deeper faith. You just need better evidence. That's it. If your belief is wobbling, don't double down on faith. Go back, check the foundation, ask the hard questions from people both inside and outside the church, and let the truth take you where it takes you. Because if your belief is true, it'll hold on its own. And if it's not, then patching it up with faith doesn't make it stronger. It just makes it harder to let go of something that you should have walked away from a long time ago. Faith isn't meant to carry the weight of belief. It's meant to act on a belief that's already earned its place. And if we ever want to take belief seriously, if we want to stop justifying bad ideas, insulating weak arguments and pretending faith is some kind of get out of jail free card, then we need to use faith where it belongs and nowhere else. So if you're doubting whether God exists, don't crank up the faith. Don't hide it in the church echo chamber. Get better evidence. That's it. So if you found that helpful, the next video digs into how churches actually keep people believing. So even when the doubts don't go away. So click here and I'll show you that playbook. And here's another video too. Right. Thanks for watching. Arrow points that way. Turn. No. Oh.